Hello, thank you for attending our webinar today on how to write a winning proposal. We're really excited to have Reena Bhatia with us, the founder and advisor for ProposalHelper. She's going to go ahead and give you some great tips and guidance on how to succeed in writing your proposals. I just want to give a little bit of guidance to everyone. We would love to answer any and all questions you have. So if you use the question tab in the bar on your webinar screen, go ahead and type in your question as you have it throughout the webinar, and then we will address all those questions at the end of the session. With that, I will turn it over to Reena.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, Periscope Holdings, for giving us this opportunity to present and talk to you all. As Britton mentioned, the topic that we're covering today is writing winning proposals. It's always a big mystery, and for any and all of us who have been involved in writing proposals, it feels nothing short of a superhero feat. So what we have done with our presentation today to make it interesting, especially because it's after lunch, to keep you all awake and interested, we have gone with the superhero theme, and we'll talk about all the great things that we can do to not just write winning proposals, but to actually turn them into wins and revenue for your company. And as Britton mentioned, if you can please type in your questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end so as not to interrupt the presentation during. Let me just start out by introducing myself. My name is obviously Reena Bhatia. I founded ProposalHelper in 2010, so this is our 6th year in business. I have been in the industry, though, for 20 years, and I've worked at different levels, done federal, state, local, and commercial proposals. I have worked globally, although a majority of my experience has been with the U.S. federal industry. I have worked in Asia Pacific and in the Middle East as well with U.S. contractors, specifically in helping them win international business. In terms of the experience that not just I bring, but my entire team brings to ProposalHelper and thus to our clients, is our understanding of not just how to write and manage proposals, but we have at some point done business development and also managed projects. This experience, I think, is very important because then we start to look at proposals not just from a documentation exercise, but it is a business impact. And that's how we approach all our proposals, and the tips that I'll be sharing with you today span that entire life cycle, so we all understand what goes into winning bids. And again, you know, where I have personally been involved, I have managed bid and proposal budgets, and I've managed and have been responsible for profit and loss. So how do I convert those proposals into revenue for my company, and thus how would I do that for you, is an important understanding that ProposalHelper brings to our clients. So let's start with, instead of diving right into proposals, what I thought is I would start with understanding business development a little bit. This is not a business development webinar, I realize that, and that's not the intent. But just to give a little bit of perspective to proposals, we'll go into the question that a lot of newer companies especially ask us when they bring a bid to us is really, what does business development have to do with winning proposals? And there is just one word answer for that. It has everything to do with it. If a company is trying to win business with the government or even commercially, and you have done zero marketing, if you think you're going to look at just the RFP and bid on it, chances and your P-win or your probability of winning business is very, very low. So before we start diving into learning how to win proposals, we need to make sure that as a company you have strong business development and capture infrastructure in place and you're utilizing them. Truly, winning proposals cannot exist without a strong business and capture effort. And the first thing we always tell our clients, winning business is absolutely more than just a strong proposal. As a proposal development company, one of the questions we get asked is, what is your win ratio? What percentage of proposals have you won? That has a lot to do with how much BD and capture knowledge our clients, you guys, can transfer to us. So we can write the strongest proposal, but it's weak compared to a company that has strong BD and capture. Moving on. So again, staying in the business development realm, the question is, should we bid or not bid on an opportunity, and why? I'm sure you guys go through this decision process every day. For our clients, we get engaged. We consider this as an important part of the proposal process is to engage with you in your bid, no bid decision process, in your thought process. What is it that is driving you to bid on this? Are you informed about the industry, the client? What is it? That is important. Be realistic. You may not be able to meet 100% of the proposal requirements or the bid requirements. There are ways you can augment yourself. There are ways you can cover those gaps, but you got to be realistic on what you bring to the table. And the last thing I would say is be aggressive. There are a lot of RFPs that are coming out that are mixed in requirements. They have multiple requirements that the government, the client, or the end customer knows very well that a single company cannot offer everything. So you have to look beyond internal capabilities and resources and be a little aggressive. Otherwise, 9 out of 10 bids, you will end up saying, we'll pass, we can't do this. And that becomes a business sustainability issue in the long run. But once you have made that decision to bid, to have a winning proposal, it is very important for you as a business leader to articulate to us, your proposal team, your capture team, your BD team, why you want this business. What is in it for the company, not just why you want to write this proposal. This is very important and a key differentiator in the way we approach our proposals. We want to know, when we design your win themes, when we are pulling your discriminators, we want to know why you want this business, not why you want to write this proposal. And your attitude towards that bid ultimately shows up on paper and in proposals. So very important in your position as the decision maker that you articulate well why this is important to your business. Well, let's look at, well, can you afford not to bid? If the decision is we don't have all the capabilities, we don't have the resources, can you afford to keep passing on bids anymore? You know, when we say be realistic, we also don't mean be a pessimist. You can look at every bid and say, well, there's an incumbent. We have a hard chance of winning this. I don't know about this one. We hear that quite often, more often than we'd like to, even though the decision of bid has been made. So that attitude goes along with being realistic, but don't be a pessimist. Step outside your comfort zone. This is where we are seeing bids with multiple capabilities required, and we need to step out of that comfort zone of this is all we can do. Let's look at partnerships. Let's look at teaming agreements. Let's look at JVs. Whatever might be and I apologize, JV, joint ventures. Anything that can augment your capability to form a total solution for the client. You have to look at possibilities beyond your own capabilities, because that allows you then to build your capability for the future as a prime contractor or even as a subcontractor. So making this decision of can you afford not to bid, it really has to do with can you sustain yourself with the contracts that you already have, and when is the next, you know, how long is it going to be before you are unseated. So make those decisions carefully. And, you know, as I put in my punchline here, be able to deliver. There's always a first time for everything. If there are capabilities you don't currently have, but the risk is manageable for your business and you're able to bid on it, you're able to deliver if your subcontractor doesn't come through, that may be something you want to look into. But that needs to be communicated to your proposal team. Again, I'm not driving here business development here, but all these points directly impact proposals. So when you do make this decision of having a team member and why that team member is coming on board, and you're telling us clearly that I don't have this capability, but we're bringing them on for that, that needs to come through in the proposal, and it has to come through in a very positive and a risk mitigated manner. So we need to know that to build a winning proposal. Evaluating your pipeline. Obviously, if you're doing business with the government, and I'm focusing on the government sector here, whether it's federal, state, or local, you should have a pipeline, or you probably already do have a pipeline of potential opportunities. And it comes, you can build these pipelines, whether it's through Periscope Holdings, BitSync, lead generations, or whether you are watching individual agencies' strategic goals, multiple avenues to build your pipeline. But once you have a pipeline, you know why you're bidding, you know you're going to go after certain bids. Don't wait. Don't wait for the RFP to come out. You have to be proactive, target new and recompete opportunities early, and engage us in your engage a proposal team early. When I refer to us, I'm talking about a proposal team. You need to start engaging and start early. There are lots of opportunities that companies look at that are recompetes. The previous RFPs are available. That's when your BD and capture folks can look at it or investigate and see how much is it going to change. Can we prepare and start working on a winning proposal now versus when the RFP comes out and we've got 30 days to crunch and make a decision. So build a solid and realistic pipeline. And why do, the driving or the most important keyword here, I would say, is a realistic pipeline. We have a lot of clients who come to us that have 3, 4 huge opportunities on the table, and everything seems to be a must-win. Everything cannot be a must-win unless you have resources that you can dedicate to all the must-wins. Be realistic about your capabilities, whether you're priming or subbing. Do we have all the capabilities? Can we put a strong team together in time? You obviously would go through your capture drill at this point. And make an early decision whether you're going as a team or as a solo, especially when there are those must-wins. There are so many opportunities that come to us at proposal stage, during proposal stage, that have not been properly thought through. Team members are being added, removed. Well, we realize that it just tells us that it's not a well-planned way of doing it if the RFP has already come out and now you're shopping for a teaming partner to augment yourself. So make that early decision. If you're going to need a teaming partner, who is that company? Who are you going to bring on your team? It also jeopardizes a very strong and winning proposal when the team partner or somebody in your teaming company has given you a verbal okay, I'll be on your team. The proposal team starts writing to it, building a proposal with that understanding, but the teaming agreements don't go through because of the bureaucracy in your team member's company, whatever it may be. The actual document doesn't get signed. We have had proposals where the day we were printing, we had to start pulling out teaming partner data, which was very critical for our bid. So that jeopardizes a winning proposal. Make that decision early. If you're going to team, start pulling your teaming agreements, getting those paperwork drills out of the way. Be realistic about your capabilities, and I know I keep saying this, so I'm not going to harp on it, but it is important. And be realistic about your resources. You cannot, unless you're a very large corporation, have 4 multi-million or large bids going on at the same time, even if you have internal resources and you're augmenting yourself with team members such as us. It will drive your executive team or your company to a grinding halt, and you need to be aware of that. So prioritize. You start out with 4 must-wins, and if all 4 RFPs were to come out tomorrow, which one are you willing to bid and not bid? And if you do decide that you're not bidding on something, you need to communicate with your proposal team again so that the resources can be diverted and better utilized. So you have a pipeline, you have been through the decision making, and now what? So now we start focusing on writing winning proposals. And the tips that I'm providing here, a lot of it, if you have questions, I think will be better fleshed out. But let me give you some scenarios. So, the business development salespeople, they do their job. They found leads. The capture folks generally will qualify and quantify them, say yes, no, we can do this, not do this, and you have a healthy pipeline. Well, where are your salespeople? Where are your capture people? Oftentimes, we see that the same people end up getting pulled into writing proposals. And I can tell you this, having done business development, having been on the project management side when I was actually managing projects, none of us like to write proposals unless it's our job. Very rarely are there that combination of a BD person having to sit behind a desk and also write a proposal. Not only is it ineffective because that only tells me that your competitor is sitting in front of a client, but it also doesn't produce very strong proposals because they're just not focused. They can share knowledge, they can share information, but they're not contributing to a winning proposal, and they should not be engaged in that activity to the fullest extent anyways. The other scenario is this. So the BD people, they have qualified leads, and the executives, they go, well, we're a small company. I don't know the size of our companies on the webinar today, but oftentimes this happens. Well, you qualified the lead, now you need to sit in review teams. Well, you need to sit at the kickoff meeting, share the capture knowledge, do all of that, and oh, how many times have we heard this? You have a kickoff meeting, don't forget that lunch, don't forget that pre-bid conference that starts at 9 a.m., exactly when your kickoff meeting starts. So basically, you're expecting too much out of one person or your BD team. And we see this scenario repeated over and over again, which creates a very challenging proposal atmosphere and environment. But the sales and BD team, so yeah, they're jet setting around, they're finding leads, they're hunting down new opportunities for you. They've got to be able to hand this off. Hand off that knowledge to whom? Who are they going to send this information to? Have your resources lined up, a winning proposal team. And I stress the word team. It is not a one-person job. That is the differentiator, and I'll explain further down how we differentiate ourselves. You cannot expect one person to write an entire proposal. There's just too much going on regardless of how small or large it is. And I know there might be a lot of people on this webinar today who said, oh no, I have done it and I can do it. You can do it once, you can do it 10 times, and the 11th time you're going to be pulling your hair out. And if you're running a business at the same time, it's not an ideal situation. It's not a sustainable situation anyways. You should expect a single person to be responsible for pulling it all together, but not doing everything required in a proposal. So there's a difference between the two. And as an executive, as a decision maker in your company, it is absolutely important that you maintain open, honest, and continuous communication with your proposal team. There are innumerable times I can recall where we didn't even know that a team member had not signed a TA, and we left them in our proposal because nobody told us about it. Or we have cited past performances and expected a questionnaire to go in without knowing that there was a show cause notice on it. So all these things need to be communicated at all times. So what's the risk of using an individual proposal consultant? I mentioned earlier, it's not a one-person job, it's a team. But there are lots of proposal consultants in the industry. Some good, some bad, there's all variety. But if you just look at everything that goes on in a proposal, all the moving parts, pieces, you create outlines, you make writing assignments, you send out data calls, follow up. Did you get that data call back? Who is a writer on this? Did the writer meet a deadline? Organize your status calls. Just so many moving parts and pieces to it. It is, again, unrealistic to expect a proposal manager or a coordinator then to also write a proposal. So how many, and even if you have a proposal consultant and you have 3 must-wins, how many of these can that person handle at a time? Most effectively, I can tell you, from 20 years of having done this, a single proposal manager cannot keep up with more than 2 bids at a time effectively. They will get things mixed up. It is a lot of work that happens, especially now when the government RFPs are constantly being amended. It's very difficult to keep up and keep all those changes straight and track all your amendments and make sure that you have a compliant bid. So as I said, stop. Stop. We said it's a winning team, and that's not one person doing it all. So how do we do it? What is different about how Proposal Helper does it? And how do we augment your company, your organization? Whether you're using a Proposal Helper or you're using a different consulting company or a consultant, however you decide to augment yourself and get some help, there are some key things you want to be aware of. If you're working with a different company or any company before you choose them, ask these questions. Are they hiring consultants to run your proposal, or are these proposal managers their employees? At Proposal Helper, we are very particular about this. Our proposal coordinators, managers, even the support staff are our full-time employees. We don't use consultants. Why? We have very little control over what the consultant is doing outside their regular hours with us. Not only are they expensive, but we don't have the ability or the same level of security that we can with our employees. What if they are working on the same proposal for another company? How do you control that? You have to have a trusted party. There are a lot of trusted consultants. I'm not saying there aren't, but you need to be careful. Do they have a repeatable process? Or is this person, every time you have a proposal, coming up with a different process, different way of doing things? That actually increases learning curve, and every proposal of yours becomes a trial. You don't want that to happen. Does a single person do everything, or do they have a support team? If you're hiring a consultant, are they doing the writing, graphics, editing? And if any of you have done proposals, as I'm sure you have, you know that after a while you look at this proposal, regardless of how great of an editor you might be, you start to miss things because you have looked at that same document over and over again. Well, if the consultant is doing everything, are they in that same position? Are they checking for compliance? Do they have time to do that if there are amendments coming out and writing to be done? Can your bid survive without that single POC? This is a very important aspect that I highly, highly encourage you all to look at when you are selecting your proposal team or your consultant. Something were to happen to your consultant, will your bid survive? This is not about a proposal. This is about your company's revenue. You're putting a lot into a single person and relying on them. Anything could happen. Will your bid survive? Now, with Proposal Helper, we don't have you have a single point of contact, but there's always a backup resource assigned. This is how we mitigate this risk of a single POC failure. Single point of failure is what we call it. And build, once you have found the right proposal team for yourself, build a long-term relationship. Understand that your first couple of bids, at least your first one, is not going to go smoothly. It is going to be rocky because there's a learning curve involved. But then you need to build your long-term relationship. We learn you, you learn us. We learn your capabilities. There have been multiple times when clients have come to us and they'll say, oh, I think I want to bid this. I'm not sure about my past performance. and we have learned their past performance and said, you do have it. It's in so-and-so bid. Look at this information in your statement of work. We can play on that. We can help you build a strong past performance. That's because they have spent time with us. They've given us the opportunity to learn them. So, you know, when you say don't trivialize the proposal, when we hear, especially the small businesses, they say, well, this is a simple staff augmentation. I can write it. It's, you know, easy to do. It might be. And I'm not saying that every proposal needs to be outsourced, but at least have a person that you trust look at it and see if there's something you might have missed. You invest a lot of time marketing, hopefully, marketing and developing relationship with that client. It's time to play. You don't want to risk a non-compliant proposal now. So put those relationships into actions with a winning team. You know, proposal managers, professionals such as us, we are multitaskers. We know what we're looking for. We know how to go back, shred that RFP, and we don't have, you know, we're not doing all the other things that you might be doing as a business owner or as an executive at the same time. We are focused and dedicated to proposal writing. So, you know, we look at things differently than someone whose primary function is not proposal writing, and make us part of your winning team. We become advisors to you as we're going through this. So before and after you supersize, you know that you're going to outsource a proposal or you're going to use your own team, doesn't matter. Now you need to tell us why you're bidding, articulate why you're bidding, convey your message with enthusiasm. It is important that we see that you really want to win this business. We, as in your proposal team, your subcontractors, your teaming partners, sales and BD, your company, your employees want to see that, hey, they're part of a winning team. It can get very, very stressful. Proposals can get stressful, especially the larger ones, the more complicated ones, where the government RFPs are not clear, and I think that's 90% of them. But it's important that you maintain your enthusiasm. Don't give up halfway and say, well, I'm not sure why we're even doing this. That really puts not just your company, especially if you have subcontractors involved, in a negative limelight, but it dampers the proposal process. The proposal team needs to know that, hey, you're still engaged, that you want to win this thing, and you're going to continue feeding us good information, good knowledge, client data, competitive knowledge, whatever it may be. And I know, you know, it's hard to put a smile on your face every single day, which is why we think this is a superhero feat to do. But there is a business impact behind this. Your business depends on this bid being won. So focus on that. Remind yourself why you started this process in the first place, and focus on business revenue, not a documentation exercise. As long as you keep that in mind, you will have a strong proposal. In terms of the process itself that we follow, and that anyone should follow, you should have a clear proposal plan. Most of you have managed projects. You know what a project manager does. A proposal is nothing short of a project. It's a mini project. You must have a clear plan. Decide who is going to do what, when, assign resources, communicate to those resources what you expect out of them. And then, you know, bring your sales and BD in at the right time to share knowledge and information, but not to write to this. You might have a strong writer, and I'm not suggesting that you never do it, but don't rely 100% on them all the time. Know your customer and know yourself even better. Read the RFP. When you first decide to bid on an opportunity, the knowledge, the information might be different. Once the RFP comes out, make that bid, no bid decision again. Understand the requirements. At this point, your proposal team should be involved with you, because you may be reading certain things a certain way. You might say, oh, they require EVMS certification. Oh, they're saying that they require us to be CMMI level 3. Your proposal manager might look at it and say they recommend compliance with CMMI level 3. Difference in what they're asking. So, have your proposal team engaged at this point. Or vice versa. You might think, hey, I can still bid this. They're not requiring a CMMI level 3 certification or appraisal anywhere. And your proposal team is going to look at you and say, well, according to the evaluation criteria, you are required to. So, stop spending money when you have good advice there. Is this something you still want to pursue? Not because you can win this proposal, but do you even want that business? There are multiple times when we have found opportunities or we start working on it and the decision makers have said, no, I don't even want this business. We have learned something, the customer is difficult, the location is so remote, our expenses to manage resources there would be horrendous. We don't want to win this. So reassess that and share that with your proposal team. Shred the RFP, look at the requirements, instructions, very important. Don't ignore the evaluation criteria. And then look at the terms and conditions. A lot of proposal consultants, they jump right into, if you're familiar with Section L, the proposal instructions, evaluation criteria, Section M, and they say, oh, Section K is a contracts manager's job. They'll look at it. Well, we don't. We think it's very important for us to at least understand what the terms and conditions are. We are not experts. We're not contract lawyers. But at a high level, we have experience enough to say there might be some clause in there that we might want to take a second look at or get a second opinion. Okay, so a couple of things that I mentioned. How are we different? Here we go. So we, at Proposal Helper specifically, we have dedicated resources who handle proposals. It's not a one-person show for us. We assign a dedicated proposal coordinator to you, so you have a single point of contact, but internally, they have a team assigned to them. There's a separate person who does graphics. There's a separate person who focuses on tailoring resumes of key personnel so that we are presenting those personnel in the correct limelight. Past performances. We don't start with reuse past performance. As best as possible, we ask you for original statements of work. And I suggest you do the same. Don't copy and paste past performances, because by the time you're done, there's a lot of good information that may not come through because you didn't know it existed on that project. So start with the original statement of work. But from Proposal Helper's point of view, there's a dedicated resource point of contact who is going to conduct those status calls with you, coordinate with the writers, follow up with the subcontractors on data calls. Internally, we assign resources to them. So, as I mentioned, there's a lot going on with the proposal, and one of the questions we'll get asked is, well, how do you charge? How much is it going to cost me to do this? I can tell you, as far as we know, Proposal Helper is the only company that started out providing fixed price proposal support. We see that as our partnership with you. There are proposal consultants, there are a lot of proposal consulting firms, they'll charge you on a time and material basis. We don't think that's fair, especially if you're a small company, or regardless, small or large. We don't think that's necessary or fair. I've been in the industry enough to know how we can optimize our processes and bring efficiency in the process. And short of us, running up a bill of $15,000, $20,000 on an opportunity where your net profit is not going to be that much. We do it differently. We fix price it. We see that as a long-term partnership. You win. The more business you win, the more business you will bring to us, and build that long-term relationship. And you define the scope for us as well. So you tell us what you want, how you want it done, and we give you a fixed price quote. But I thought I'd share some of the sample proposal plans that we create. We use Smartsheet as our tool. It's similar to Microsoft Project, just a cloud-based tool that we use. and we give our clients access to it. This is just a very small snippet that I pulled out of a typical 30-day schedule that we start out with. Every schedule gets tailored. This is just a generic one, most standard things that happen. And we prepare a project plan or a proposal plan similar to this. This is prepared by us, and we share this with our clients. And behind the scenes, for our internal accountability, there are activities that go on that our proposal coordinators and managers prepare and are held accountable to for some of the activities that I'm showing on my screen right now. So while the client only sees the high level or the activities that are being presented in the client project plan, internally to get to those different milestones, there are lots of things that need to happen. This is also where we have repeatable processes. Regardless of a proposal coordinator that is assigned to you from our company, everyone follows similar or exactly the same process. They may tailor, the activities might change in the internal and the 30-day schedule depending on your bid, but they must prepare these plans so that they are held accountable and they have a backup person who picks up if something were to happen, and they're not lost as to who's doing what. These plans are very important in how we maintain accountability. Our services are available through Periscope Holdings BitSync clients. There are multiple levels of services that we offer, but I'm going to turn over the microphone here to Russell Petty from Periscope Holdings. So Russell, if you want to talk a little bit about the services that are available to your clients, I'll hand the microphone over to you now.
Sure, thanks Reena, and I only want to take 3 or 4 minutes, but we want the government contractors in the Periscope network to be the most, or continue to be the most successful government contractors. So in addition to taking the tips and the information that you've learned today to win a higher percentage of the opportunities that you come across, we want to make sure you know what tools we can provide you to increase that win percentage as well. The 3 things that our vendors use the most and have used the most over the last 3 years with this partnership with ProposalHelper is first these outlines, and I guess the best way to describe how these outlines help is kind of like putting an address in a GPS. What you'll do is you give us an RFP that's open, and we're going to get back to you a step-by-step guide on how to attack that proposal in the form of outlines and a cross-reference matrix, and we'll give you updates based on the way the RFP is tracking with Q&As or amendment changes, but it's your map, it's your guide to get that RFP won. The second thing that people use are independent content reviews. So if you're about to submit an RFP and you'd like another team outside of your company that has decades of experience to review the content, make sure that you're compliant, make sure that you have any, if you have any gaps that they get filled, so that thing is bulletproof when it actually gets sent. So we have a lot of clients that love taking advantage of that content review. Lastly, and probably the most popular, is the full proposal writing, and that's just because we have a really experienced vendors, government contractors, that will say, hey, we've been doing this for years, and we've done it this way for so long. It would be really nice to have another team show us how they would do it with our product or service to improve and sharpen our sword in any way that we possibly can with an outside perspective. So that's one way it gets used. Another way is you have an existing team that's doing extremely well, but for whatever reason, you get an RFP that's larger or more complex than you're used to, or some of your team is sick or out of town, and you just need backup to make sure that you get the best response on this proposal. They'll use ProposalHelper to assist with that, with putting together the right response. And then lastly, that we work with a lot of small businesses that what they do day in, day out is perform and execute with the products and services that they have. And so they don't have the resources or want to dedicate the resources to a fully staffed team. So what they'll do is they'll outsource all of that very cost effectively. When a bid comes across, they'll say, hey, we'll have this team do it for us. So we have a lot of small businesses that come back every single time they're ready to respond to an RFP, so they can take care of business and let the team actually handle the response. So just wanted to throw out there that those are the three things that most of our partners are using Proposal Helper for, and we want to make sure that everybody knows on this call that we always follow up these webinars with an email to give you a recording of this, but also we want to give you directions on the website to how you can get more information and quotes on some of your RFPs that you're working on right now, and make sure that you get the exclusive pricing that we offer through Periscope for Proposal Helper services. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew where to get that. It's coming in an email. That's it, Reena or Britton.
Thank you, Russell. And Britton, I do have a couple more slides that I wanted to touch on. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but is it okay if I go through those?
Yeah, I think that's great. You can go through those. We're about 15 minutes to the top of the hour. We do have a few questions to go through once you're finished with these slides as well.
Okay, I just have a couple of slides because I know that the question will come up, pricing, and that not pricing for our services. That comes, you guys are with Periscope Holdings, you get special rates, and that Russell will discuss those with you, but pricing your bids. This is, I think, a question that pops up over and over and over again. A lot of our clients will say, well, we'll do pricing internally, we're going to do that on our own. But then they are just at a loss. They can't figure out, well, how do I price this thing? That is a service that is available through Proposal Helper. We do have pricing experts. But as a general information, to share information with you guys, back in the day when I first started doing this, we actually had a whole team that I used to work with dedicated to price to win, not with Proposal Helper, but different employers that I worked with. Industry used to have these experts, price to win experts, and all they did was collected competitive pricing information. They would have reams and reams of spreadsheets and, oh, well, we should be here, we should price that, we should price this. And I still get clients who will say, well, can you give me a price to win expert? Well, honestly speaking, the competitive nature of this business has changed so much that you don't know who is going to bid and who your real competitors are, other than the incumbent themselves if they qualify to bid, obviously. But the game is wide open, and so you can't really say that there's a true price to win competitive analysis that you can go through unless you're narrowing down yourself, or you want to compare yourself to the 2 or 3 companies that you constantly win or lose to. A good resource if you want to get or gauge where the competitor, if you know who the competitors are going to be or where the pricing might come close to, the GSA schedule rates or any contracting vehicle that the companies have are published. And yes, they can discount their rates off of that, but we all have a fairly good idea of how much a company would discount off of that. Do some salary surveys, and I didn't put that on my slide here, but we can do salary surveys for you. Have salary surveys. In fact, when it is allowed in the RFP, we have included salary surveys so that the government can see our rates were based on realistic surveys. They are not just, hey, I think I want to pay somebody $50,000 a year. They are based on realistic surveys for that area, and it really rock solid backs your rates up to say, even if the government estimates are different, at least they have evidence of how you're even pricing yourself. So think about those resources. And ultimately, our advice to you is live with the lowest you're willing to live with. That's just the environment that we are in right now. Yes, the evaluation criteria might say best value, but most of the bids right now are LPTA, which is lowest price technically acceptable. Regardless, live with the lowest price you're willing to live with, and know why you're doing that business. Don't start paying the government to do business with them. You don't want to pay to get a contract, but you may not get a second chance. They may not come back to you for revising your costs. So just be aware of that. And that's it. So it's a winning team. Have a team with you, not a single person. And again, from a BD capture point of view, just to recap, bid realistically, know why you're bidding on the opportunity, what it means for your business, not that why you want to win the proposal, know why you want to win the business. Network and build a strong team. Very few bids are proposed anymore with just single companies. There's a lot of teaming that goes on. We are more than happy to recommend teaming partners once we get to know your quals. We often do that. In 2014, we had 600 unique companies that came to us, so we have a vast network of companies whose quals we know, and we might be able to help you fill some of your capability gaps. Surround yourself with experts. You have too much invested to take a chance and not have a compliant and solid winning proposal. And whether you use your in-house resources or outsource, have realistic expectations and set the scope right from the beginning. And be engaged. Most importantly, be engaged. Don't just throw the RFP over the fence and expect a magical proposal to come out the other end. It doesn't work that way. And that's all I have. Said.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Reena.
Oh, I apologize. I was going to say, you guys are all superheroes going out winning business, but everybody, even superheroes, need help. So I'll wrap up my slide there. Go ahead. So I'm open for questions and any discussions we might have.
Oh, thank you so much, Reena. This is Britton. We do have about 5 questions typed into the chat button. So let me go ahead and read those to you, and then I'll let you respond, or you can flow them over to Russell if that makes more sense. So the first one is, sometimes when you read a bid, it feels like the prospect has already decided on who they want because the bid is written so specifically that you can even tell which competitor they want. Do you think it is even worth it to bid on one like this?
That's a great question. And if it is that specific, if you're reading it and it is so specific that only you also know who can bid it, no. I would say my advice would be, why are you bidding on it then? If you know that it is wired for somebody else, the industry term is it's wired. No. But if you remember earlier in my slides, I said, don't be a pessimist. You can look at every bid and say, oh, I think this is wired for the incumbent. Oh, I think they really want this company to come back and do this. There are times when you can read too much into it. And I would say be realistic about it. Don't be a pessimist. If it's not that hard-boiled wired for somebody, take a look and say, what can I offer to unseat that incumbent? What is my differentiator then? And then make that decision whether you're going to bid or not bid.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question I have is, the contract I have at this time is about to expire and the client is bidding out the renewal. How should I change the new proposal from the original proposal?
That's a great question. If you are the incumbent, very vulnerable position, unless your client really wants you back and you have good relations. How do you change your proposal? You have done a lot for them in the past 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. You have brought value to this. Pull those monthly reports. Very important. We always say your recompete begins on the day you were awarded that contract. So hopefully you have done lots of value-added things on this contract. You have brought in employees that the client values. You need to bring in those hard-hitting facts and ghost, or I'm using industry terminology here, but you need to ghost your competitors. Somebody's going after this. What are they going to say? We're going to take over the incumbent employees. We're going to transition. We'll give incumbent employees the first right of refusal. Well, what is important to this customer? Is it your employees? Is it you? Is it the processes that you have improved? You brought efficiencies. Make sure you pull those monthly reports and pull out those important pieces of information, the kudos letters, the emails your client might have sent saying thank you for that support. All that needs to show up in your proposal. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to change the date on my previous submission, because that tells the client that in the last 3 to 5 years you did nothing of value for them. You don't want to do that. So you are actually in a very good position if you bring out those key value added services and cite those in your proposal.
Okay, great. We just have a couple more. One is for teaming, like a joint venture or something like that. Does the other company need to be on a GSA schedule or 8A certified, for example, to be matched up with us? Or can the other company be a non-government competitor?
That depends on the bid. The bid will tell you if it is an 8A set-aside bid and you are an 8A contractor. Does the RFP require the joint venture to be an 8A? Or can you position yourself as a lead in that joint venture so your 8A qualifications would be recognized? GSA schedule, unless it is required, there's no stipulation that a joint venture or any partner has to have a GSA schedule. Again, it depends on the bid. I'll give you an example. There was one bid where one of the leading partners was a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. The bid was an SDVOSB, but once they submitted it, the government came back and said they want the joint venture to be recognized by the certifying authority. So they had to resubmit their paperwork to get the joint venture recognized as a SDVOSB. So that really would depend on the bid and what the requirements are.
Okay, great. Let's see, we have a couple more in here. Let's see here. Generally, is it a percentage-based fee structure that you have? I think they were speaking to Proposal Helper.
No, we look at the scope that you define for us, what level of support you want on the proposals, what type of proposal support you need. We look at the RFP and we give you a fixed price quote. And obviously for Periscope holding clients, there are some preferred rates that we provide.
Okay, great. And then there's just two more on here. One more was just asking who was Periscope Holdings. I understand that this is a little confusing, so I'll answer that. So for BidSync clients, we assume most of you are aware that Periscope acquired BidSync in December 2014. And Periscope, before the acquisition, just provided e-procurement software to the public sector. With the acquisition of BidSync, we now serve the suppliers that contracts their services to the public sector. So that gives you some history there. And then the last two questions here, we have two more. This is kind of a long one, but it's a great question. When you're the writer on the proposal team, how do you get the subject matter experts to buy into your timeline? So often we can come to a standstill in writing as we wait for clarification on subject matter. While we're essentially running the project of responding to the RFP, we are not in a position to dictate to sales and operations. So, Reena, do you have some advice there?
That's a great question. Yes, those subject matter experts, they're great technologists. They're great in what they do. Oftentimes they have day jobs. They're serving your clients, and you're asking them to do something after their regular hours, so they hate you already. The way we do it is we assign technical writers to SMEs. And the easiest thing we say, tell the subject matter experts, is please just give us bullet points. Don't try to write sentences, because half the time we can't even tell what they have written, or they copy and paste from some other proposal they might have worked on and say, hey, figure this out. So yeah, give us bullet points of what it is you might want to say, and the technical writer will write it out for them and just have them review it. And then it's easier. It's always easy when you don't have to start with a blank piece of paper. So that's one way to do it. The other things that we have done very successfully is have the technical writers interview or talk to the SMEs on the phone and take down information. And when they don't have to write, they don't have to jot down points, and they're willing to talk, they're very open and cooperative. That way, at least the first draft is on paper, and they're not starting with a blank piece, and we've captured a lot of their thoughts. Those are some of the ways that we do it.
Great, thank you. And the last question is fitting. It is, will the presentation be available? And yes, it will. We'll work with Reena to make sure that any slides that she doesn't want us to send out to everybody. She takes out, but otherwise we'll send out the presentation, and then also the recording will be available as well. So with that, I am going to go ahead and shut this down and just really thank Reena again for all your time today, and thank everyone for attending.
Thank you all. I hope the information was useful.
Thank you.
Take care.